My opening example is probably not all that great, but when you get to be around as long as I am, you kind of dig deep sometimes. But anyway, people will often say, Don, when's a good time to come and see you? And I say, well, if you're driving by the church and you see a pickup truck in front of the church, that means I'm there. Well, my pickup truck has been in intensive care for the last 3 weeks. So the other day, someone calls me, Don, where have you been? And I said, I'm here. And he said, I don't see your truck. And I said, well, either do I. Because 3 weeks ago, it died on me on LaGrange Road, and I wasn't too worried. It limped into Nagels, and I called him the next day, and he said, Dan, how's my truck? And he said, not good, Don. I can't do it. So he had it towed to a Cooper's over on 104th Avenue, and he said, I just want you to know you're not going to have your truck for a while, and keep your checkbook handy. And so I haven't seen it. So I had a really nice day the other day. I visited someone in the hospital, and I went to somebody's house and had a nice visit. And I drove by where my truck is, and I thought, I'll just stop and ask him when. And so I went in there, and he was really nice. Said, hello, Reverend, I know why you're here, and we're still waiting for one part. And he said, would you like to see your truck? And I said, yeah, I've been visiting people in the hospital for 40 years. I've never paid a pastoral call on a truck before. And I went in, and the truck was all laid out. I mean, the hood was open, the motor was taken apart, the wheels were off, and I went, oh, man. And he said, let me show you what happened. There's a little spring, about this big. And it's somewhere there in the motor, and it broke, that big. It broke and caused all this damage. And I thought to myself, well, and I kind of went like this and a couple of these, and I felt like pouring some communion wine in the motor and see if that would work. But as I drove back here, I thought about life. How sometimes one little thing can mess up your whole day or your whole week and sometimes your whole life. It doesn't have to be big, just something little. Maybe it's an unpaid bill that you just can't get out of your craw. Maybe you're having a problem with somebody at work and it bothers you every single day. Maybe one of your kids is not speaking to you and it's the only thing you think about when you go to bed at night. Maybe it's something you said and you wish you could take it back, but you can't, and you kind of beat yourself up day after day for doing it. Or maybe it's something somebody else said about you and you kind of wonder, is that the way they really feel about me? 99% of stuff can be okay in your life. But if 1% goes wrong, it sometimes can eat you alive. And I think we've all been through that. The gospel this morning is about the transfiguration, which is, Jesus has 3 of his disciples on the mountaintop, and something happened there. Jesus was transfigured. Something happened where the disciples got really inspired, and they really understood who Jesus was. And they said, Jesus, let's build 3 booths up here. I want to stay here. And Jesus said, it's not the way life is. We can't stay on the mountaintop. Your truck may not work all the time. Your family may not be perfect. You may have some wounds that aren't going to heal up here, and so you got to go down the mountain into the real world. He said, that's where my word has to take shape, but it's not always easy. And I realized that my life is kind of like that pickup truck. Sometimes one little thing goes wrong, and it eats at your guts, and you wonder, and you worry, how can I make it better? That's one reason why I love the 23rd Psalm so much. We say it every Thursday night. We said it today. We sung it today. We're going to say it on Ash Wednesday. Because somehow those words, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. Because thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. When I think about walking through the valley of the shadow of death, I think a lot of the big stuff. I think of the people in Ukraine. That's got to be the valley of the shadow of death. Turkey and Syria, the faculty and the students at Michigan State University. But how about you? Our valleys may not be that big, but they are valleys. Maybe it's a prayer that went unanswered. Maybe your daughter-in-law has cancer. Maybe you lost your nephew at the age of 44. Maybe that job that you so desperately wanted and interviewed for, and you thought you had it and you didn't get it. Maybe it's a dream you had for your life. You know, we got a dream. We're taught to dream. There's people that coach us how to dream, but the dream never comes true. Or maybe you just feel blah. There are times, you know, when you're not sure what it is, but that inner passion you had, you know, those sparks of joy, maybe they disappear for a while, and you wonder, where has it gone? How do I get it back? We walk through lots of valleys, but we're not alone. And hopefully through people like each other and the church and the Spirit, when we walk that valley, we know that God's Spirit will give us the strength to get through. And every morning I walk in here, especially on Sunday morning, and I just look at the altar, and I look at the rail here, and I look at the prayer book. And, you know, the altar takes many forms, but the altar is open. Everybody is welcome. You don't have to take a class, and you really shouldn't have to be a certain age to come here to taste of the goodness of the bread and wine. It's a gift. You know, when Jesus served the Passover, and that's part of what Lent is about, he didn't have a class, he just did it because he knew there was a valley, and he wanted to make sure those disciples would get out of the valley after he left them. This altar and this rail, it's a place of goodness. It's a place of grace. I was at someone's house the other day where the altar was a TV stand. I was somewhere else where the altar was a hospital tray. The altar may be a footstool in your living room. One of my favorite altars is the kitchen table. You know, you gather around a kitchen table. That's an altar where a lot of goodness can be talked about and shared. So the other day I went to see Jay. Jay is a proud Marine. Spent his whole life in law enforcement. I mean, he was a guy. And he is right in the middle of the throes of dementia. And it's so hard. I mean, I don't know what it's like for him because he probably doesn't know, but it's hard on his family and friends. So I went to see him yesterday, and sometimes in the midst of things that are tough, you have to smile and kind of laugh once in a while. So we're sitting at the table. It's Jay and his wife, and he has 2 caregivers and me, and everybody's having punchkis. And Jay has been, you know, he's taken a shower, and he's had a, you know, he looks really good. His hair is all combed, and we're sitting at the table, and he looks at me and he says, well, you over there, how are things at the ranch? And I said, things are good at the ranch. And he said, by the way, do you know the pastor over there? And I said, yeah, Jay, it's me, and I married you. And he said, oh, that's right. But, you know, I was thinking, he was smiling, and it was him and his wife and the 2 caregivers, and I sensed a spirit in that kitchen. You know, it's just a kitchen. And so I said, would you like to share communion? And the caregivers look at me like I got 2 heads. And they go, really? And I said, where? And I said, here. And they said, well, when? I said, now. And they are both, so you can tell, spiritual people. But well, don't you have to like wear a thing? And don't you have to be a member? And I said, no, here and now. And we shared the gifts around the table. And afterwards, they just looked and said, wow, that was so simple. That was so nice. It was almost too easy. And I said, you know, all you need is us. All you need is a spirit that binds us together. It's about simplicity. And in the middle of simplicity, we discover majesty. You know, the valley that we walk through may be complicated, but the spirit that we share is never complicated. There's a simple majesty that God gives to us every day, and we need to capture that. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed.